I'm back again with another video. We're still in the clinical setup. It is what it is. There's so much traffic outside, you'll have to forgive it. Today's video is talking about the book that I read most recently. However, the term book would be incorrect as it actually is a long poem, story, situation. So for lack of a better word, I chose book. So as you may know, if you've watched my other videos, I'm currently in Vietnam, and I realised that I have never heard of any Vietnamese literature. So I went on to Google, did a little bit of a research, and I found the most popular and well-known Vietnamese piece of literature. Now this is the long story poem I mentioned earlier, and it is called In Translation, because unfortunately, not quite there yet. I definitely need to do some Vietnamese practice. It's called The Song or The Tale, depending on how you translate it, of Kieu. Hope I said that correctly. If I didn't, please help me improve. So this piece is written by Nguyen, and he wrote this based off a true, or supposedly true, Chinese story, I believe, and he kind of adapted it to create this story. This was one of the best things I read in a very long time. Okay, maybe not that long, but in quite a while. So I gave this a 5-star, 10 out of 10, smashed it out of the park. It was fantastic, honestly. There was so much going on. I was worried it was going to feel like a text that you read at school or for an academic purpose where, you know, you start reading it and then your teacher goes, what does red symbolize? Red, the color of Curly's wife's dress. That kind of situation. And I remember just being like, I'm sorry, I love the books, I love reading it, but I can't be bothered to work it out. I just want to read it in its entirety, and I was worried I was going to have that kind of thing going on here. However, it was not the case. It was amazing, and I really, really loved it, and I would recommend it. If you fancy giving it a go, let me know in the comments down below. So obviously, disclaimer, I did read this book in translation form, so there may have been some things that were missed, but I did do my research, and I found the best translation that I came across, and I chose to read that one. Could have got a PDF, but I actually went and bought this version, so hopefully I didn't get ripped off, but who knows, it was worth it. Obviously I'm sure it would be, if it's a 10 out of 10 in the translation version, I'm sure it's even better in its original. Definitely in the footnotes there was a few mentions of how certain things can't be entirely conveyed in the English language, and that's the case with all languages. Sometimes you just have certain words or certain phrases that just don't carry the same meaning. You can have a rough translation, but the depth isn't there, the culture, tradition behind it isn't there, and I feel like that's okay. I've accepted that. I've accepted that. But for the rest of the time, I really did enjoy it. It was also kind of a little bit of a history lesson as well. I didn't know too much of older history of Vietnam. So as I mentioned before, I gave this 5 stars, 10 out of 10, amazing. If asked would I recommend this book / long story poem situation, 100% yes. I would say give it a good go. It really kind of, dude, it really I really think that this piece of literature could have a good impact on people's mentality towards life, because it has some really nice messages in there. And basically the story follows the main character, Kieu, who is a daughter. She has a sister and a brother, 2 parents, and basically it's her life and she goes through a lot of misery. It's really interesting because it's written in such a lovely poetic way. Again, obviously the translation, but I'm assuming it's as close as it possibly could be. The poetic way of it really just kind of gives it a whole deeper meaning, a deeper layer. Like, I feel like if I'm sat there reading this, obviously my mentality, my perspective is going to be influenced, rather than sitting there like kicking my feet at a little saucy scene in a random book. Obviously you can't compare the two. I feel like this could actually be quite impactful. Just give it a go, right? You know me, you know I like to write my little reviews. This one had quite a long one actually, but I'll break it down for you, all right? I'll break it down. Initial thoughts, reflections, literally put the Kindle down, got the notes section up, and away I was just typing, going. Just all my thoughts. As you can probably guess, I said that I really loved this, and I also found it kind of crazy at first that it was based on a true story. Like, imagining somebody genuinely went through what Kieu went through in the book is quite impactful, quite profound in a way. It kind of gave you a deeper connection with the story because it gave a real life presence to someone who you felt was imaginary, and I really enjoyed that. It was very clever, very well polished. I feel like maybe I've mentioned this before, but that's sometimes what works and literature nowadays kind of lacks, that little polish, that little finesse. I definitely spoke about it when I was giving praise to the queen herself, Miss Donna Tartt, for The Secret History, because she really shows that finesse, that flourish, and I think it's the little things in a book that make them more enjoyable rather than sometimes some big shocking plot twist. I think it's the intricacies, the character development, your connection as a reader with what's going on in the story, and I feel like this piece of literature, this piece of work really did that. Honestly, phenomenal, fabulous. Everything happened in quite a cyclical nature. This does make me feel like I'm back in an English literature lesson, but I really did appreciate that, actually, the kind of start to the end and everything moving around in cycles. It also mentions a lot about the Buddhist religion, which again has that kind of reincarnation, so symbolizes that. I did not think I'd be using the word symbolizes after school, but there you go, we've done it now. It was really interesting to dive deeper into Vietnamese culture, traditions, and I find that really interesting because I think I mentioned this before in another video, but it actually kind of made me feel more connected with being in Vietnam. It kind of made me understand a lot of people's mindsets, their daily life, their values. That really helped. So I would definitely recommend, if you're struggling to connect with a country you're in, or maybe you want to know a little bit more, definitely try and find one of the pieces of literature that is most well known or very popular amongst society, because it really can give you that better understanding. So, top tip of the day, what can I say? I'm a poet and I didn't know it. Again, as I mentioned, I really enjoyed the older history, sort of the relations between Vietnam and China. That's something I personally didn't know about before reading this. As I've said previously, I do love history and I know a lot more about modern history, but I don't always go that far back. So that was definitely another great aspect. Honestly, I enjoyed this work so much that afterwards I was kind of tempted to be like, should we start learning Vietnamese now just so we can read this in its original script? And honestly, kind of could be a challenge. What do you think? It's also very different to the usual style of books and works that I read, so I did really honestly appreciate it. It was a whole new experience, a whole new world. Basically, on the whole, there was a perfect mixture of tragedy, humor, misery, loyalty, bravery, all those words you associate with a good piece of literature, and definitely happiness. For lack of a better word, it was an epic, you know, that kind of, I don't like that the word is so cringy, but it does kind of encompass what I'm trying to say, because it kind of fulfilled everything in every aspect, every way. It was quite a short read as well. I read it in probably under 6 hours, so, and that was split up between different days, so very quick, very easy. So honestly, why not? I do feel like it's changed or maybe enhanced that sort of motto that you have a life, go live it. I wasn't expecting it to the parting words at the end were really fantastic. I'm not going to tell you because you have to go read it, okay? There's so many PDFs online, so no excuse, it's free. Well, anyway, I have definitely waffled on for a long enough time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any recommendations of more Vietnamese literature, I would love to give it a read, so put those down in the comments below. Also the case of any other country's literature, I would definitely love to broaden my horizons, read more things, experience new things. So give me your recommendations in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. Have you subscribed? I don't think you have. Do it now. That was a bit intense, wasn't it? Well, without further ado, without further ado, until tomorrow, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. No one told me my hair looked like this. You could have told me.
Ugly shit.
Can you stop breathing so loudly, please?
Fuck
You're
off.
literally like... Oh no, don't do that. No. No, I can't leave. Stop it. No.